The question here is to convert 100 miles per hour to meters per second. Now this is a very common sort of question in physics because miles per hour and meters per second are both common ways of measuring speed or velocity. There's more than one way to do this question, but I'm going to show you the most general way, and you should be able to apply this method to other similar questions involving compound units. These are compound units because they're made up of more than one type of unit. This one includes miles and hours, and this one is meters and seconds. So the best way to start doing this is to write out the 100 miles per hour as a fraction. So instead of writing miles per hour the normal way, write it as 100 miles over 1 hour, and that'll make it easier to work with. Now because this is a compound unit, I need to use two different conversion factors to convert it. So first I need to know a relationship between meters and miles, but I also need to know a relationship between seconds and hours. So if I look up how many meters are in a mile, it turns out there are 1,069 meters in 1 mile. So I write down 1 mile equals 1,069 meters. Now to figure out how many seconds are in an hour, I'll just remember that 60 seconds in a minute, and there's 60 minutes in an hour, so 60 times 60 makes 3,600 seconds in an hour. So I write 1 hour equals 3,600 seconds, and put a little box around that and the other one, just to remind myself these are bits of information I'm going to need later. Now the next thing will be to take the 100 miles per hour we started out with and multiply it by, and I want to multiply it by both conversion factors at once to change the miles into meters and the hours into seconds. But we'll start with the miles. Now since miles is on the top of this fraction, I want to multiply it by a fraction that has miles on the bottom to make them cancel. So I look up at the original relationship we had here, 1 mile equals 1,069 meters. I want to put the 1 mile on the bottom and the 1,069 meters on the top. So this is what I'll end up using. And I'm going to put that over here next to where we were working before. And remember that those straight line brackets there don't really mean anything. They're just there to show that that's a conversion factor. So that factor is there to change the miles to meters. We'd need one to change the hours to seconds as well. But this time hours is starting out on the bottom. So I want to multiply by something with hours on the top to make that cancel. So from the original relationship here, I know I need to put the 1 hour on the top and the 3,600 seconds on the bottom. So I'll use 1 hour over 3,600 seconds and put that next to where we were working before. So now that the fractions we're going to multiply by are set up, we can start canceling out the units. So you can see we set it up here so that the miles on the top here would cancel with the miles on the bottom there. And I'll show that on a new line so you can see what's going on. We're just canceling out the units right now. And the hours here on the bottom will cancel with the hours up here on the top in that second fraction I put in. Now you can see that since the miles cancel out and the hours cancel out, the only units left over are the meters on the top and the seconds on the bottom, right where we want them to be for the answer. So now all that's left is to carry out the multiplication with these three fractions. So the multiplication is going to be 100 times 1,069 times 1 on the top. So I don't need to put the 1 in. It'll be 100 times 1,069 on the top, and 1 times 1 times 3,600, which just gives 3,600 on the bottom. And I put the meters and seconds in separate, because I know meters is going to be on the top and seconds is going to be on the bottom because of the canceling. 100 times 1,069 divided by 3,600 gives 29.69, which I just round up to 29.7. And instead of writing meters over seconds, I'll just write meters per second in the usual way with a slash. And that's the answer. So now I'll just put in my final statement, which relates back to what the question was in the first place. we started out with 100 miles per hour and wanted to change it to meters per second and found out that 100 miles per hour is the same thing as 29.7 meters per second. Now it's a little harder in this case to do a check to make sure the answer makes sense. Uh, but if we look back, you can check over to make sure you did the canceling right. And if you're really not sure, you could try doing the calculations again, just to make it doubly sure that they're all correct. But if you're in a course where you need to convert between miles per hour and meters per second quite frequently, then it might be a good idea to remember that 100 miles per hour is about the same as 30 meters per second. Then in the future, if you're trying to make a quick estimate or check over to make sure something makes sense when you're converting between miles per hour and meters per second, you'll have that bit of knowledge to work with. But I can tell you this is the correct answer.